Welcome to Short and to the Point, a podcast from the Comeback in Awful Announcing. Here's your host, Jessica Kleinschmidt.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Short and to the Point here on the Comeback and Awful Announcing. So excited to be back with you today. I wanted to talk to you guys first and foremost before I introduced my guest about the grind. And when I introduce my guest, you'll understand why. But the grind to me is what got me here. I'm so lucky to have this podcast and all of my opportunities in broadcasting with baseball. And don't get me wrong, the grind is important. It's imperative to my success and why I'm able to pay the bills and why I'm able to have food on the table. But the opposite of the grind is rest, and it's taking care of yourself and taking care of those around you, because the grind's important. You want to be able to make sure that everybody around you is taken care of, but you have to make sure you're taken care of as well. And the reason why I brought this up today is because I'm exhausted, but in the best way. When I'm tired, I'm usually smiling. And the reason why I'm smiling is because this is how I'm wired. I appreciate rest, and I think that that's important. But don't get me wrong, the reason why I'm able to rest is because of that grind. And the reason why I'm talking about the grind today is for my guest, street journalist Adam Glyn. Interesting job title for sure. If you are a celebrity beat person, probably heard of Adam Glyn. He spent many years with TMZ, and we all know how TMZ is approaching the celebrity news scene. And Adam kind of took it upon himself to create his own brand, to create his own journalistic way, and introduce you to some really cool, amazing people along the way. And the reason why he has some of these amazing relationships is because of that grind. And that's why he's respected by a lot of celebrities. So when he approaches them on the street, they respect him and they understand him. So here's Adam. Adam Glyn joins us. He's one of the hosts of Hollywood Raw. Adam, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And, before we pressed the record button, we were just chatting about stuff, and it's definitely relatable in the content media world. Your title is a street journalist, and it's kind of interesting because you said it might be a long-winded answer to describe what I do in this title. Tell me about the title and why it's kind of difficult to you to define what you do.
Yeah, it's, so my background, I worked for TMZ for a long time, and the title TMZ gave me, which, was kind of, it was a camera guy, then they named me a producer. And then, but the general public kind of labels you as a paparazzi. I'm running around the streets with a camera. For me, I do primarily video. I don't do still photos. I'm trying to get sound bites and kind of get these guerrilla style interviews with people on the street. So I didn't want to be labeled the word paparazzi, because when you say the word paparazzi, there's a stereotype to it. People start to think about what they think the job is like. And I just said, what I do is kind of different than paparazzi. I work with paparazzi, but what I do is I consider myself a street journalist. So I pretty much had to make something different for my LinkedIn. And that's what I did. I just kind of made something like a different title, which makes people question it. But it's funny because it's not even a real title. I just made it up for myself because I think all titles are sort of BS. But then it's funny. I start to see other people, and they label themselves a street journalist. I'm like, guys, do you know I actually made this title up out of nowhere? Like, what is a street journalist? I don't even know what it is. But what I do is I do celebrity interviews on the street that are raw and guerrilla style and just sort of more fun, but, majority of the time unplanned. Sometimes they're planned, but majority of the time unplanned.
And tell me about that, because this guerrilla approach, it could be construed as intense or abrasive, but it's not. You really have a genuine charisma about you. And I noticed that in some of it, because you have, Derek Jeter and Oprah who recognize you and they're willing to talk to you. How do you kind of bring that charisma into your approach? Because when you're on the street, it's less formal. Does that help you in any way?
Yes and no. I mean, it's hard because there's so many cooks in the kitchen. There's, as you know, Jessica, there's like the people in their entourage to try to keep you away from them. I mean, their job is to kind of get them from point A to point B with nothing in their way. Obviously, I'm in their way. But, from my experience, and as you know, if you try to reach out to Oprah's people and you said, hey, I want to interview Oprah, the first person picking up the phone would say, sorry, we're not interested, click and hang up the phone. But I
Mhm.
realize if I get to them, if I find them, then there's better chances that I will be able to interview them. And I'm fortunate I started at a really good time. When I started was right during that time when like Britney Spears is taking an umbrella and taking it to paparazzi's cars. It was
Mm,
just like a very abrasive
yeah.
time in pop culture and news. And honestly, I didn't know if I felt like a good guy doing the job, but I realized coming from I have a comedy background. I do stand-up comedy. I did it before and I still do it today. I could use that to my advantage. And I would just kind of humanize them. I would just kind of, in some ways, hit on them. I would hit on guys. I hit on girls and I'd be like, yo, what up, my dude? And try to make it not so fake and corny. It was just
Mhm.
more real. And honestly, it was more about perseverance a little bit. I would make sure that every single time that Oprah was in New York, I would cross paths with her. I would make sure every single time Shaquille O'Neal was in New York, Kim Kardashian was in New York, I would cross paths with them somehow, where they would start to see my face and recognize me. And then they would start to realize, hey, he's not a bad guy.
Mhm.
He's not there to hurt me. And the questions I'm asking, majority of the time, I would say 99% of the time, it's not tough questions. Most of these people haven't done anything wrong or bad. I'm not trying to do clickbait. I'm just trying to make them fun, funny, interesting,
Mhm.
and, make a good, walk away with something from the interview. And it's funny for me, you watch these interviews, like in the background, I have like the morning shows on. You watch these interviews and nothing against them, but to me, they're not a real interview. It's
Mhm.
fake. And as you know, they're pre-rehearsed. The questions are already done in advance. The
Surface
answers are kind of
level.
pre-planned.
Surface. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so corny. So for me, I just think visually people want to see how these people really are and, where you get them in New York. And I just think it makes them more fun visually. I don't know. I just believe in that kind of media. So I just kind of keep doing it. I've been doing it for 14 years now, 13 years around there. So I enjoy it. It's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, and you can tell that you do enjoy it. And you mentioned 14 years, and I saw your interview with Derek Jeter, and it makes me think of A-Rod. And I just spoke to A-Rod about this recently. The transition of media over the years. A-Rod is different from Derek from the point of view of steroids. A-Rod got suspended, and he was in a certain aspect of the media. Media hated him. Now he's a member of the media. But then back in the day, you could talk about some of these things with a glass of scotch with a newspaper guy. Nothing would go on the record. So, what are your thoughts on the transition of media from when you started 14 years ago to now?
It's a great question. I think it's hard to say with a change of media because there's so many forms of media now. There's not just television, obviously, the internet, the TikTok, the social media. There's so many forms of media. I just know with these, I can only say from my personal experience, like you said, when I first started doing with A-Rod, I'm a huge Yankee fan. I
Mhm.
didn't have the best experiences with A-Rod growing, when I first started. A-Rod, we used to kind of, I wouldn't say butt heads with me, but he wasn't a fan of what I did. But now I
Mhm.
feel like he's just been around to it where he's kind of understand it. And also I think for me, I think he realized with at least from my relationship, like I'm not a bad guy. Like I'm not there trying to get him. We had A-Rod, I've had some weird experiences with A-Rod over the years, but now we've kind of, I'm not friends with him by any means, but
Mhm.
maybe if we see each other, we're sort of like civil. Like he understands what I do. He respects what I do. Maybe it's from his relationships in the media as far as, the guy was with the biggest singer in the world who embraces the paparazzi and
Mhm.
cameras in their face. So he has to, you know, he has to come to fact that that's the life that you choose, especially when you start to date at that time one of the biggest stars in the world, Jennifer Lopez.
Mhm.
Now it's just, I don't know. It's difficult. Jeter's always been very. Here's the thing, honestly, Jessica. If you want to know the truth, I'm a little bit biased when it comes to the Yankees. I've always been very, very good to Jeter. And the thing is,
Mhm.
I would get tips on Derek Jeter all the time when he played for the Yankees, but I never wanted to bother him because I didn't want to have a bad game and be like, oh, that guy in the media got my head. Because as you see my head, I'm a big Yankee fan. However, now that he's not playing, I've gotten him a bunch of times and he knows what I do and he's very cool. He's very nice. He's very understanding what I do. And I told him that. I was like, Derek, do you know, like, I would see you at the Starbucks. I get tips on you at the Starbucks every day before your games. I knew your schedule before you go to the Yankee Stadium. And I never bothered you. But I don't know. I never want to mess with the Yankees because I'm such a big fan. But
You don't wanna be the guy that makes Derek Jeter go 0 for 4 that night.
I don't. I have too much money on the line. But also I'm such a big fan. Derek Jeter's he's my Mickey Mantle. He was the man. But yeah, you got to embrace media at a certain point. And honestly, if he did nothing wrong, you have nothing really to worry about. Most of these guys are pretty fair. Now, again, is there some rough journalists out there? Yeah, there is. But majority of people are just looking for a soundbite and or some sort of answer, and you don't really have anything to worry about. I mean, as long as you didn't hurt anybody or do anything malicious, like you're okay. Maybe sometimes I want to ask you your opinion on something that you have nothing to do with, and I get that. And honestly, working for TMZ, that was a problem for me, where a lot of times they'd want you to ask someone about something else going on in the media, and I knew that was only going to put that other person in a rough position. So it's just a way of becoming more media trained with it.
And, it's interesting because when you were starting off in your career, when I think of TMZ, I think of somewhat rough journalists. You're mentioning the clips and stuff. When you said you were with TMZ, did that make it difficult for some of these interviews? Because I feel like with your charisma and your approachability, that might rub people the wrong way during that time when media are just, shoving a camera in your face. You mentioned Britney scandals and everything like that. Was that a difficult transition?
It opened the door in some ways and closed the door in some ways. Obviously,
Mhm.
some people gave me a chance because they knew who I was working for. So they knew, hey, I'll give him a shot because he's working for TMZ. So they were actually a little bit nicer to me and cooler to me. And some ways, people didn't want to talk to me because I was TMZ. And
Mhm.
now some people talk to me now because I'm not TMZ. So it works in both ways. I would say more now people work with me because I'm not TMZ.
Mhm.
But again, I'm grateful that they kind of opened the door for me and kind of give me a platform and I could find this in media. And I realized something was there and I believe in it. So, yeah, it's weird. I mean, TMZ kind of their media has changed. Their stories have changed over the years, and there's only so many stories on the website a day. They don't really push out the content like they once did, but the stories they do, they're meant to bring in viewers. They're meant to
Mhm.
bring in an audience. They don't really for the questions I do, I don't think they really care for the stuff that I do because it's more in some ways evergreen. For me, I consider it interesting, but they want, they're a business. They're trying to bring in viewers and it's a news site and they want clicks. They need to make
Mhm.
money.
Tell me about the term clickbait and what that means to you.
Clickbait is something that's just whatever is going to hook people in to make people watch the content, whether if it's a catchy title, or if it's a catchy thumbnail, whatever is going to get you to click on that click. So, sometimes people will see a headline like, "Oh man, this is going to be," I kind of with my stuff, I kind of keep it very basic. I'm very kind of cautious about clickbait in my opinion. I try to be at least because yes, do I want people clicking? Yes, but I don't want people to be upset with the content. I want them to be like, know what they're getting into before they click on it. And you hope that's the mind frame. Does it always work all that time? Does it work all the time? No. But for me, it's something that's going to catch the person's attention and make
Mhm.
them tune in. Does it always, do you always get what you wanted when you click on it? No. But
Mhm.
the company, the outlet behind it did. So I understand it.
How do you find that balance? This is more of a personal question because I do write hot headlines and I'm a tease when I tease on my pre and post games. You don't want to lie to them, but you also want to make them salivate a little bit and make sure that they're paying attention to the next segment or to the article that I'm writing.
It's a good question. I'm trying to figure that out myself. Where's the
Okay.
balance between clickbait, because you want them to tune in, but also being truthful and honest to the audience? It's funny. I do a lot of business on YouTube. I do a lot of work on YouTube, and people always hit me up and say, "You should make a cooler thumbnail, make a flashier thumbnail." And thumbnail, if you're not familiar, it's that first photo you see when you go on the YouTube. It's
I
the
make Philip
picture
not
that
give me a double chin. That's all I care
yeah.
about. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you want that it's that some people will say you need to put some graphic arts and stuff, make it very cool and flashy. For me, I don't know, I always ruled against it. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out because I want people to see that it was a raw video, and that's why they might tune in. I personally and also if someone's not familiar with YouTube, when you make the title of the YouTube, you only could put 100 characters. So there's only so much space you could really put in that opening. So
Mhm.
um I think it's where they're being honest and fun with the title. And I think that's the best way to do it. I don't like to use the word shockingly says,
Mhm.
because that's not for me to determine if it's shockingly. That's for you to determine if it's shocking.
Mhm.
I think it's more of just the content itself will basically say if it's worth the person's time to click on it.
Yeah, and that's something I've been working on too. And you're talking about YouTube. What do you think is the most successful social media platform that you've worked with over the years?
YouTube is my bread and butter.
Mhm.
YouTube. TikTok is terrible. Actually, it's funny. I try to post on TikTok like a week and a half later after I do my interviews. Reason is TikTok is good if you save the video, it says your name on the video, but the
Mhm.
monetization on TikTok is terrible. So what I
Mhm.
do is I do celebrity interviews and I give it to all the media outlets. I just give it all out. Here, take my video, take it. However, if you're going to use my video, you need to keep my watermark in the video. Actually, what you have to do is you have to embed my YouTube video
Yes.
into your news site. So what happens is they get free content. I get to click on the video to download, and you have to mention my name in the article because I am the outlet. And it's been an issue. What happens with TMZ? You might give the video to TMZ, and then basically TMZ does a media blast saying we got. I'm like, but I'm not TMZ, so don't And people will rewrite the article saying TMZ got uh, whoever it is, Michael Jordan, for example. And like, no, TMZ didn't get it. Adam Glyn did it. So
Uh-huh.
what I do is I give it out to all the other outlets. I'll send it to the writers. I'll send it to I'll do a huge media blast. But the rule is you have to embed my YouTube video into the article and you have to mention my name in the article. And it's a way to protect my brand, but also give them content where they want to use because it doesn't cost them any money. And then I make money on YouTube.
I love that.
TikTok, again, the money is it's just not there. It's like
I've
cheese.
noticed
It's
that.
weird. It's not even it's cute, it's nice, but it's like it doesn't really move the needle, unfortunately.
I wasn't sure how to define TikTok. I think cute is the best word to define it. It's cute. It
Yeah.
gets the job done. I'm trying to
I don't
up my
even trust
TikTok
people.
game.
I don't even trust people who have a lot of TikTok followers because like people are like, oh, I have 500,000 followers on TikTok. I have 1 million followers on TikTok. I'm not impressed because it's not that difficult to get a lot of followers on TikTok,
Mhm.
in my opinion. I think, and I say that someone could be struggling, but it comes down to decent content. But I don't see that content. If someone, I don't know, it just doesn't do well for me. And again, I'm trying to make money, and
Mhm.
the money is not there.
I get it. I get it. And you're talking about like, aggregation. I feel like that's definitely a big part of what you guys do, especially on Hollywood Raw. But what's the biggest website that aggregated from you that kind of left you like, damn, like they picked up my clip or our clip?
I mean, it's pretty insane because I'm just I'm just a middle class guy from Jersey, and it's crazy when you see your name on Sports Illustrated. They're making memes with your name on Sports Illustrated, like Conor McGregor talked to Adam Glyn, or you see
Mhm.
yourself in ESPN, Sports Illustrated, New York Post, Daily Mail. I mean, it's insane because I still consider myself the guy on the outside. I still consider myself a small person, but it's like surreal to see that I'm beating these major outlets to the interview. For example, I didn't screw them over, but I did. I got
Mhm.
Conor McGregor 2 weeks ago. This is pre everything that's going on with him in the
Mhm.
news, and this is right after he beat up the mascot, and he was doing Regis. He was doing Regis. He was doing Kelly and Mark Consuelos. I don't even know what he called the show now. Live with Kelly in the
Yeah.
morning. The day before, that was going to be his first interview, and I think what they're planning on is that was going to be his first interview to talk about beating the mascot. I got him the day before, and I realized he talked about it with me. I realized I got to get that soundbite as quick as possible out. I push it out, and right away, I mean, it goes everywhere. It gets picked up everywhere. Later that day, I get reached out. Like I ran into the publicist of Conor McGregor, and was like, "Yeah, he kind of screwed over Kelly and Ron, the Kelly Ripa show because they wanted that soundbite. They wanted to be the first one because they knew they could get some news from that. But I
Mhm.
kind of beat them to it, and that's sort of what I do, but it's not the main goal, but it happens.
I want to
It's
shift
fun.
gears a
That's the
little.
fun part for me.
Yeah, no, like you kind of pay attention to the schedule, and then especially an
Yeah.
early morning show like that, and you get that
Yeah,
out
yeah.
before them. That's great.
Oh, for sure. I
Um,
saw him the day before, literally randomly walking on the street. I'm like, whoa. And then as soon as I get it, I'm just in my head, like, boom. Like it's adrenaline. It's exciting. It's exciting to see that kind of go down.
How have you ever like slipped up on a, not want to say slipped up on a question, because sometimes you can't anticipate who these guys are going to be. And I'm always prepping, but obviously sometimes I get a random interview from a player that I wasn't anticipating. I got to come up with something quick. Has that come easily for you in your career?
Yeah, I mean, that's 95% of my time is
Yeah.
doing that. I mean, that's the difficult part about it. And people, they kind of like to trash me sometimes because like, oh, that's what you asked. I'm like, dude, if you only know, I didn't know they were going to be there. This is what happens. You want to play a game, Jessica? This is the job.
Sure.
Black Escalade pulls up. It's Friday night at 9 p.m. It's dark. There's craziness on the street. There's ambulances going on. There's people yelling at you, asking you for money. There's also people walking down. It's just a wild night. Okay. Black Escalade pulls up. Who shows up out of the car? It's Jim Carrey. Goot. You got 10 seconds. Go, Jessica. What are you going to ask him? Jessica, ask Jim Carrey. Talk to Jim Carrey. What are you going to ask him?
Yeah. And then you have to
That's
figure it out.
that's what you have to do. And you have to be fun, funny, interesting, maybe newsworthy, maybe topical. So it goes in all that. You never know. Majority of the time, I don't know who I'm going to run into. I don't know how the interaction is going to go down. Sometimes it's set up. There's definitely sometimes it's set up. There's definitely sometimes I'm going for someone or my goal is to get that person. But majority of the time, I don't know who I'm going to get. And you have to be kind of ready and just kind of on it. It's a wild, that to me, that's the fun part. That's the exciting part about it. I love that. I'm an adrenaline guy, but I'm a different type of adrenaline guy. I'm not the adrenaline trying to jump out of planes with a parachute. This is my adrenaline that I chase.
And if you were to test me and ask Jim Carrey questions, what's off limits? Because my mind goes, unfortunately, to the I word. I don't know if I'm allowed to say Illuminati on here, but that's where my mind goes. What's off limits?
I mean, I honestly, Jim Carrey might speak about that with you. So I would say go for it. I mean, you got to kind of read the room a little bit.
Okay.
I'm not going to ask him about his dating life if he's with a girl. So it's like you read the room a little bit. Sometimes you want to kiss their butt a little bit so they know you're coming in there with good intentions. I love when there's some videos on YouTube. I love with Jim Carrey talking to graduating college programs, and they're mostly random colleges, but he does great speeches. So yeah, but he's he's a very unique guy, and anything he says, for a guy who is one of the funniest people of all time, making $20 million a film, to being so interested in perspective on life and human human interaction. I think anything he says is kind of, if you want to say clickbait, yeah. But people are interested in. People are just curious what he has to say about it because he's such a. You want to hear a great story about Jim Carrey?
Of course.
One day, Jim Carrey one time. First of all, so one day, actually, it goes back to Kelly Ripa. It was a Friday night, probably about 10 years ago. Kelly Ripa was eating at a restaurant called La Conde Verde in Tribeca in New York City. Very fancy, very nice restaurant, very good restaurant. And I'm waiting. There was a Friday night, 9 o'clock. I could see him through the window, and I needed a shot. At the time, I was working for TMZ, and I just needed a shot just to show that I worked the day. I didn't get anything all day. Mm-hmm. Sure enough, Jim Carrey pulls up, and he's on a date with a girl. It's him, a girl, and a bodyguard. And they see me, my camera, and I didn't put the camera up. I was just like, oh, my God, it's Jim Carrey. He's one of those people who's like an enigma. I would never thought I would actually see him in my life. Right. And Jim Carrey goes into the restaurant. I see him walk into the restaurant. I see him sitting right next to Kelly and Mark at another table. And they eat dinner, and I'm not shooting through the window. And they finish up first. But the bodyguard brought out the date first into the car, and then he brought out Jim. And the reason they did that, they knew I was a paparazzi outside, and they didn't want to be shot together, which I understand. But they didn't want to. They didn't know what was going on. But I just wanted to get a photo with Jim. I was just such a fan. I was like, oh my God, it's the first time I've ever seen Jim Carrey in person. So girl comes out. I threw my camera in a nearby bush. And then all of a sudden, Jim Carrey comes out. I go, Jim, can I get a photo with you? I would love to meet you. And he goes, sorry, man, don't do photos. And he jumps in the car. And I'm standing there, and it's like a wet Friday night at 10 p.m. And all of a sudden, he rolls down the window because he sees me not standing without a camera. He goes, hey, man, I'm not in the mood to do photos, but I do want to meet you. My name's Jim. I go, hey, Jim, my name's Adam. I'm a journalist. I'm a camera guy on the street, but I was waiting for Kelly, but I saw you. I'm just such a fan. I just want to show you how much I appreciate you and I enjoy you. And I grew up on you. And he talked to me for 20 minutes about my career, about comedy. And while he's on a date with a girl in the car,
I love
that summer, he moved to an apartment in New York City. He lived on Perry Street in New York City. He doesn't live there anymore, but he had an apartment on Perry Street, and down the street, he had an art studio. And he'd go to this garage, and it was like a garage, and he'd paint, and he had bikes in there. And we became friends with him all summer. We'd go by, he'd be like, hey, what's up, man? And like invite you inside, show you his art, and just like coolest guy ever.
I love
And then all of a sudden, the funniest part is like years later, I'm waiting outside the Trump Soho Hotel. What was it called? The Trump Soho. It's now called the Dominic Hotel. And the Jonas Brothers are staying there. And the Jonas Brothers staying there. There's about 10 fans waiting outside for the Jonas Brothers. And I'm standing with the door guy, and there's a black Escalade outside waiting for Jim Carrey. But the girls thought it was for Jonas Brother. And all of a sudden, Jim Carrey comes out, and he goes to the girls, Jim Jonas, nice to meet you. And he jumps in the car, and he closes the door. And the girls don't even know who he is. Like, what? Who is that?
What just happened?
And then he rolls down the window and goes, I'm the Jonas Brother no one talks about. And the window goes up. And it was so funny because I'm not even doing justice, but it was Jim Carrey being Jim Carrey in front of us. And it was just me and the door guy who saw it. And it was just so good. It was probably one of the funniest things that happened to me on the street, because just to see Jim Carrey in his element, like just being funny and silly, was just so, you don't see it.
Yeah, he was the long lost Jonas Brother we all like heard about.
Yeah.
We figured it out.
Good guy though. He was the man.
Oh, I love that. I always loved him, but now I love him even more. On that note, when was the first time you were ever starstruck and the last time?
First time I was starstruck was 3 weeks into the job. 3 weeks into the job when I started was 2009, 2010. I was actually waiting for Khloe Kardashian, and I wasn't starstruck for her because at the time when I first started, the Kardashians weren't the Kardashians they were today. I mean, they're still very nice. They're very cool. They're very good to the fans. They're very good to the camera guys. They're great people. They're pleasant, nice, good people. But I was waiting for Khloe Kardashian, but all of a sudden, randomly, Michael Jordan pops out. And when you see Michael Jordan the first time in person, again, I'm a middle-class guy from New Jersey. I was like, whoa, Michael Jordan. And I remember talking to him, and he answered a few questions, but he kind of like, it was just wild to see Michael Jordan in person. Like, just he's not real to me. Jim Carrey wasn't real to me. Michael Jordan wasn't real to me. So I remember the first time I saw Michael Jordan, and then he got in the car, and me and the other guy who like, it was like, I think an autograph fan next to me was like, whoa, how insane was that? That was Michael Jordan. Last time I haven't got starstruck in a while. I mean, it's weird because I'm a little bit jaded, and which is such not a good thing to say, but like I've been doing this for so long, I kind of got used to it to a certain extent.
Are they people? They're people to you then?
They're people. They're still celebrities, but like it's more of like a business to me in some ways. Like, guys, let's just make this work. Let's make it good for you. And I'm cool with them. Like, I saw Conor McGregor, right before everything went down, and Conor was cool to me. And like, we have a good relationship. Like, he knows I'm there with good intentions. I saw Oprah. It's always cool seeing Oprah, and
that's when I would get starstruck. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's still, I don't get starstruck with her, but still like, holy shit, it's fucking Oprah. Oh, I'm sorry. Can I curse? Sorry.
No. And when it comes to Oprah, you better have that mentality. Yeah.
Sorry. But it's Oprah, and she knows me. And that's the part that's crazier. Like, we have this like dynamic, even Conor McGregor, that we have this relationship. And don't get me wrong, we're not friends. We're not going out for dinners, but like, if I see him, it's cool. It's like, yo, what's up, dude? How are you? Like, even Oprah will stop and talk to me, who's one of the biggest people in the world.
Yeah.
And like, when Oprah comes to New York, she usually does, 2 interviews at least. Or maybe 3 interviews. She'll do, I'd say 2. She does Gayle King, and she does Adam Glyn. Pretty wild. It's pretty insane.
That's so cool. You and her bestie. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. But she knows, like, I think she gets a kick out of what I do. She respects the hustle. But she also knows, like, I'm not really asking too much. What's so funny with Oprah? I try to softball her questions, and she was like, no, give me the real question. Give me the tough. And
she's a journalist. That's how, like, she's a damn good journalist. Yeah.
It's actually funny. I had a video one time about Prince Harry and Meghan. And I got her one night, and she was great. And she goes, no, ask me the tough question. And I was like, okay. Yeah. Oprah, what are your thoughts? But I try not to ask it where I provoke her, or if it's like an angle. It's more like giving her a platform. Like, here's the story. What are your thoughts on it? And that's what I try to approach everyone. I don't try to come after them. I try to say, I don't want, and that's my way of not feeling like the bad guy, no matter what it is. And you try to be the good person, and most people respect it, so but it's different. You're different because you're baseball. Sometimes you have to ask these people after they had a bad day. You're doing it more. You have a harder thing than I have. You have to ask more of these people about having a bad day. For me, not all these people are having bad days. Sometimes
Yeah.
there's a bad story and you run into them, but not as much as you. You're every
Yeah.
night. Baseball's it's a long season. It's 6 nights a week. So
And I earn the respect by asking them those questions too. Like my biggest fear, I've never had to do it, was asking, hey, Mike Trout, you went 0 for 4. How did that make you feel? Luckily, I've never had to ask that. I never will, because I know how to frame it better. But those crappy questions, the guys love me more because of it. And they know I have to ask. If you get tattooed, we have to talk about it. What wasn't
yeah,
working for you? And yeah.
yeah, that's similar to me. It's like for me, it's people realize this is part of the business and they have to ask and they have to do with it. There's times celebrities come to me and like, hey, not today. I actually had that
Mhm.
with John Oliver on Saturday.
Mhm.
John Oliver, I was asking him a question about a news story with him, and it wasn't a bad story, but he was just sort of like, I don't want to get into it. And I was like, yeah, no
Mhm.
worries. But
Yeah.
people don't see what happens. And actually, even when the stuff goes good or it goes bad, I always try to shake the celebrity's hand after and just be, hey, man, thank you so much for it. Like,
Yeah.
because I am very appreciative of them, first of all, taking the time to answer my questions because they took the time to talk to me. I'm able to pay my bills. I'm going to pay for my health insurance.
Mhm.
But even when they don't talk to me, I want them to remember, like, hey, that guy wasn't a bad guy. Because again, it
Right.
makes me feel better because I don't want them to think I'm just like a guy just trying to squeeze as much blood out of him as possible. But it's like, hopefully they remember next time, like, hey, that guy was cool. I'm going to I'll help him out if he's,
There's the next
trying to eat.
opportunity. Yeah, I love
And that's what
that.
happened with Shaq. I have a very good relationship with Shaquille O'Neal. I used to get Shaq every time. And then one day I went to get him. He's like, dude, not today. I was like, yeah, no worries. And I started walking down the street. He goes, hey, what's your number? And I gave him my number. And then he just texted me. And then I would text him. And we just started sending each other random stuff. Then a random time, he hits me up. Actually, it was like 7:30 in the morning. I was with Tony Robbins at the time. And he
Mhm.
goes, yo, he calls me from a block number. Where are you? I'm like, oh, this is Shaq. Come to this building right now. And again, he kidnapped me for the day. And we hung out all day and we had a great time together. And then we wound up becoming like friends. So
I
it's
love that.
yeah, he's my guy. He's the best person out there. He's when it comes
I've
to all
heard
these
that.
people, it's not a fake, it's
Mhm.
genuine. And he really is a superhero. I've never seen anything like it.
Oh,
It's he deserves, I don't know, there's some sort of Mother Teresa type award, but what he does, you see the stories of him like at Home Depot buying someone a washer
he's
and
super
dryer,
philanthropic. Absolutely.
but
Yeah.
that's only like we only see like a small percentage. Like I
Right.
see him do stuff. Majority of stuff is not on camera, and like you
Yeah.
don't even see him doing. It's crazy, but he's more than any. And I've seen billionaires from Elon Musk to
Mhm.
Bezos, but I've never seen anything like Shaquille O'Neal. Honestly, every time I talk about it, it brings out a different emotion because it's like he's incredible.
I love that. And with that though, I mean, you talk a lot about sports because when I think of who you've been starstruck for, like same thing, I'm surrounded by athletes and they're beautiful human beings and I love them, but we have to do the grind together, so it's different. Like Mike Trout didn't really starstruck me, but when it comes to that, you said Michael Jordan, you mentioned Shaq and all these other guys. Why sports for you?
It's a lot sports, but it's also people I grew up on.
Okay.
Like if you said to me, like Derek Jeter, does he play baseball now? No, but I get more excited for Derek Jeter than I get for Stanton. I get
Mhm.
more excited for Jeter than I do almost like an Aaron Judge because again, I grew up on him.
Right.
And it's nothing against Aaron Judge. When I see him, he's a nice guy. Like I just don't really, it's not that appeal to me. So anybody I grew up on, it's part of the molding of who I am today. And it's part of my childhood. So that's what makes it more special. But then I also think of people in my life who would just love to be in that situation to meet that person. And that's for me. So that's what gets me excited. You know, I would hate to say the word, but sometimes I get a little jaded doing this because to me it's work, but also it's
Mhm.
fun. I love what I do, but there's also a money aspect where I'm trying to make ends, trying to eat at night.
Yeah.
But I get excited when I bring a friend of mine from Jersey or a friend of mine who's not from this world and they get to meet the person they always want to meet or just see these people in person. And that excites me. And it could be someone random, but obviously Shaq is just Jordan, Jeter. Like these
Yeah.
are the guys. They were men amongst boys. I don't know. It was just something about these guys. Obviously some of these guys are more New York based, but Shaq was just on the court and off the court, just such a difference maker for
Yeah.
people from acting to business. It's like, man, what can't this guy do? And I don't think there's another guy in sports who's really done what Shaq has done for his
Mhm.
brand. And when you think of the business with Shaq and what he's done, he's such a unique and interesting guy. Where, when you think of Reebok, people don't realize Shaq owns Reebok. It's just like crazy to think about this stuff. And he's from, we're from the same area, really.
Mhm.
So it's kind of cool. But anybody I grew up on, it's cool. If you said Kevin Durant's on one side of the street, but Kevin Durant's on one side of the street, but Scottie Pippen's on the other, I go to Scottie Pippen because I'm more curious about him. I'm more interested in him. Even though Kevin Durant's actually a little bit nicer, but
That's interesting.
That's what I do. Yeah.
Before I let you go,
before
I let you go, tell me about the Hollywood Raw podcast.
We've been doing this. I've been doing the Hollywood Raw podcast for about 3 years now. I do it with a guy I used to work with, Dax Holtz. He worked at TMZ with me for a long time. We had different jobs at covering entertainment news. I was on the streets doing celebrity interviews, pop culture interviews. Dax was in the newsroom getting photos, all those photos that paparazzi get. Dax would have to go through all the paparazzi agency photos and basically determine if they're worth covering, and was on the forefront of breaking some of the biggest stories in the world. So what we do on the Hollywood Raw podcast is we like to say we humanize celebrity entertainment news. We kind of make it more relatable for the everyday person. Talk about the show business aspect of the news and how it kind of works and play it out. Because we're not two people talking about or giving us gossiping about it. We come from a journalistic experience. So we usually have a good insight of the story, how it's broken down, or give you a perspective, something to consider. Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of PR that goes into these stories. It's a big business. So we do 2 episodes a week. During the week, we do once with an interview with either a celebrity, someone who has an insight of what's going on in the media outlets, who's a writer, or even sometimes we talk to a bodyguard of a celebrity and they have great stories. Sometimes we talk to the paparazzi themselves because I love their stories. Then on Friday, we release an episode where we go through the top 10 stories of the week, again, focus on entertainment news. Again, we like to just say we humanize Hollywood. We make it relatable to the everyday person so they can understand the business behind the business.
Yeah, I love that. I have to tell you my Eric Chavez story after we get off of here, but you've been absolutely amazing. Thank you for your time, Adam.
Thank you, Jessica. Thanks for having me.
That was Adam Glyn. Make sure you are following him on YouTube and Instagram. Just search his name, Glyn. You can also listen to his podcast called The Hollywood Raw. Everything in depth about the celebrities that you know and love or would like to know more of. Make sure you're following him. Thank you so much for listening to the latest episode of Short and to the Point here on the Comeback and Awful Announcing. Thank you to Philip, the producer, for taking care of me, being the super glue that holds my eyelashes, my fake eyelashes together. Thanks for tuning in to Short and to the Point.
Want even more short and to the point? Follow Jessica at Kleinschmidt JD and head over to thecomeback.com and awfulannouncing.com.